Most offers don't fail because the founder isn't smart, right? They fail because literally nothing forces them to get better. So in this explainer, we're diving into a really fascinating and honestly kind of brutal operational reality. You've probably seen it before. A business keeps the exact same offer for months or maybe even years. The founder's saying, oh, we're improving, the team insists they're learning, and the website confidently claims they have a proven process. But behind the scenes, nothing measurable actually changes. The promise stays super vague and the deliverables just sort of drift. Today, we're unpacking exactly why that happens, and more importantly, how you actually fix it. Your offer only improved when failure finally cost you. That is our core focus today. We're building a continuous strategic argument here about the mechanics of forcing operational excellence. We're going to look at why vague offers, ignored complaints, weak deliverables, and repeated bottlenecks just keep surviving when absolutely nothing forces the seller to step up. And you'll see how introducing a controlled seller-side consequence completely flips the script, forcing a business to tighten its promise, strictly define its deliverables, and actually fix those preventable failures. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off and look at this uncomfortable truth. A weak offer doesn't usually collapse overnight. It's not a dramatic explosion. Instead, it slowly loses its edge. The buyer hesitates just a bit more. The sales cycle drags out. The seller tries to throw in more bonuses to compensate, but the conversion rate just keeps weakening. And what does the business do? They usually blame the market. But the offer isn't being attacked by the market, it's being exposed by it. If your offer has not improved recently, it may not be stable. It may be decaying. So what does this decay actually look like in the real world? Well, the business keeps saying they're improving, but look at the reality on the ground. The promise is vague, something incredibly generic like, we'll help you grow. Deliverables constantly drift, mostly relying on an it depends attitude. The delivery process itself, totally improvised. The team just says, don't worry, we'll figure it out. The founder might see these as minor hiccups, but the customer, they just feel uncertainty. And uncertainty absolutely kills conversion. The real reason the offer stays weak is actually pretty simple. Failure is just way too cheap. What's truly wild here is that feedback alone rarely changes anything. Think about it. Most businesses get plenty of feedback, right? Complaints, lost deals, bad reviews. But look at what actually happens. A customer complains, and they're instantly labeled as difficult. A poor review gets posted, and it's quickly rationalized away as a one-off issue. They hold an internal meeting, and it ends with a vague, yeah, we should really improve that. A business can literally collect data for months without changing a single important thing, just because it's so incredibly easy to postpone doing anything about it. And this brings us to a massive foundational truth for this explainer. Feedback is optional when failure is cheap. A dashboard is great, a meeting is helpful, a complaint is useful data, but none of them creates action on their own. A founder can easily say, we'll review it later, or a manager can just brush it off saying, well, the buyer wasn't serious anyway. Meaningful action only happens when the business actually feels the pressure to act. That brings us to the concept of a real consequence. Consequences turn feedback into an operating priority. We're not talking about emotional pressure or just feeling bad. We're talking about operational pressure, financial pressure, reputational pressure, a hard cost that simply cannot be swept under the rug. When there's a serious consequence on the line, it creates a very real reason for the business to immediately stop tolerating mediocrity. To really see how this plays out, let's compare two different approaches. Most guarantees you see out there, they're completely decorative. You know the ones. Refund only, buried deep in the fine print, super vague and treated as this annoying customer service cost that only gets triggered if someone complains loudly enough. But a hard guarantee is a totally different beast. It's highly visible right before the purchase. It has absolute, clear rules. It defines exactly what success looks like and exactly what failure looks like. Most importantly, it creates a real consequence when the seller fails under those agreed conditions. Because it has those clear rules and consequences, a hard guarantee does not just protect the buyer, it disciplines the seller. The seller suddenly has a very tangible financial reason to care about variation, a real reason to care about unclear promises, messy handoffs, and slow support. It takes that vague internal intention of, hey, we should improve, and turns it into a practical, urgent operating requirement. We need to fix this right now before this failure happens again and costs us. This dynamic creates what we call the quality accelerator loop. A serious seller-side consequence creates a pain signal. That pain signal demands immediate attention. That attention forces an operational correction. And that correction, it creates a better offer. The team stops saying we'll figure it out on the fly because suddenly improvising has become way too expensive. You see, pressure does not create quality by magic. It makes the absence of quality expensive. This shifts behavior instantly. The business is practically forced to define success in one clear sentence, to lock in deadlines, to clarify exactly what both the buyer and seller need to do, to standardize delivery, and to eliminate bottlenecks. Because if you don't do those things, the guarantee eats you alive. So we just do them. And that leads straight into a very specific, definitely uncomfortable realization. We call it the hurt moment. This happens when the business can no longer hide behind blind optimism. A valid claim appears. A delivery deadline is officially missed. The seller has to accept a defined consequence. It feels dangerous, right? Maybe even a bit unfair in the moment. But the guarantee didn't create the weakness. It simply revealed it before it became just another invisible disappointment. The hurt moment is where real offers are born. Because before this moment, the seller could lean on comforting little stories like, "We're almost there," or "Our customers love us." But after facing a real consequence, the seller has to answer the hard questions. What exactly failed? Why did it fail? What will be different next time? And how will we actually know it's different? Having to face these questions isn't a punishment. Actually, it's the forced evolution required to build a vastly stronger design. This evolution is what transforms a stagnant offer into an engineered offer. A stagnant offer is floppy. It says, "We'll help you grow." The buyer asks how, when, and what exactly they get, and the seller just responds with a word salad and vague confidence. But an engineered offer is solid concrete. It states the specific deliverables, the exact timeline, the output standard, and the specific failure condition if those aren't met. A vague offer asks for trust. An engineered offer creates proof. The goal here isn't to make every single offer perfectly rigid and inflexible. The objective is to make the promise clear enough so that it can be judged honestly. And when you have clear promises, it finally becomes possible to build a process that can actually keep them. Let's look at a practical example of this. Imagine shifting from a vague claim, like, "We will improve your conversions," to a hard operating commitment. Something like, "Within 10 days, we deliver a rewritten offer page, a guarantee framework with anti-abuse rules, 3 campaign hooks, and a measurable tracking plan. If we miss 2 of the 4 deliverables by day 10, you get a refund plus a penalty." See what just happened there? Trust me instantly turned into a visible, trackable delivery checklist. Once delivery is fully visible like that, the weak steps become so much easier to improve. A consequence creates attention, and that attention exposes the real bottlenecks. Unclear language, it creates unmatched expectations. Poor qualification, that brings in unsuitable buyers. Missing checkpoints, they allow totally preventable failures. When you start seeing a pattern of claims, it acts as a literal map, exposing the exact areas where precision and improvement are urgently needed. It highlights exactly where improvement is simply no longer optional. But a quick warning, we do have to be smart about how we track all this. A consequence without metrics is recklessness. A metric without consequences is often theater. So many businesses love tracking vanity metrics. Clicks, retention numbers, delivery times. But if you have a weekly report that never actually changes behavior, that's just theater. On the flip side, throwing out a bold guarantee without knowing exactly what evidence matters or how claims are reviewed, that is reckless exposure. Measurement tells you what happened. Consequences ensure that what happened actually matters. A business can improve because a founder cares, sure. Or maybe they get a burst of inspiration. But those forces tend to fade under pressure. A controlled consequence, however, creates a reliable force. It aligns the incentives perfectly. When the buyer receives the promised value, the company wins. When they don't, under fair conditions, the company pays. It gives the whole team a highly practical reason to fix root causes rather than just endlessly managing symptoms. The offer gets better because it absolutely must. A really cool example of this public proof of consequence in action is NegBook. It's actually the first book in the world with a negative price. The English title is "Well-Being is Impossible If You Don't Measure It," and its battle cry is brilliantly simple. Either you read the book and it helps you, or you read the book and it pays you. The whole point is that value must be strong enough to survive a real consequence. The seller has to be willing to be judged on whether it actually helps. You can see this exact framework in action over at www.negbook.com. So don't wait around for motivation to magically strike to improve your offer. Build a system that makes preventable mediocrity expensive. If you want to identify exactly where your offer is vague, where your delivery is weak, and where a controlled seller-side consequence could seriously accelerate your improvement before your next launch, then apply for the -1 diagnostic. The link is in the description, or you can go directly to negbook.com/negative-price standard. Remember, an offer that never hurts the seller has very little reason to stop hurting the buyer. A strong seller doesn't ask how to avoid being judged. They ask what must become true before they are comfortable being judged. I'll leave you with this final thought as we wrap up today's explainer. Your offer only improves when failure finally costs you.